Hello, my name is Emeka Okereke and you're welcome to yet another video from Tech Talk at EO Multimedia, which is my channel. If you are watching me for the first time, thank you for joining us. I'm a visual artist, a photographer, a writer, a filmmaker, and this channel is basically about sharing my process and all the equipment, all the devices that I use for my creative/artistic workflow, and hoping that, we are going to make informed, knowledgeable consumers and producers and out of all of us watching this channel. So yeah, welcome. Now I'm bringing you this video from my desk, which is mainly where I do all my work, post-production, photography, film, sound, everything. Up until now, I've been reviewing equipment, and maybe gadgets that I've been using, for instance, headphones that I've been using and all that. But going forward in this channel, I'm going to be delving into some of the things that's been helping me to realize my work, including even softwares and apps, but also little devices that have been helping me. For instance, I have here with me this mouse from Logitech, and since I got it since the last 2 weeks, it's been amazing, and I've been asking myself why I didn't get it sooner, And also here I have something called the Loupedeck CT, and CT here means creative tool. It's basically a console that helps you if you are a multitasker and a multimedia person. So basically you work with film, sound, photography, and you're moving from one software or app to the other. This is definitely for you. It has sped up my workflow enormously, and I'm grateful for having it. I'll be reviewing it in this channel, so watch out for it. But today, what we're actually talking about is this here. So this is the Fuji X-S10. Recently, I went out and got a new camera body to support my main camera, which is the X-T3, which is the one I'm filming with right now. And the X-T3 has been phenomenal, and I simply do not have any complaints or any downsides to tell you about this X-T3 camera. It has served me really well. But when it comes to doing everyday photography, I find that the X-T3 is a cumbersome camera. So I was going for something that is more portable, that fits more into that everydayness of things, for me. But also to have a backup camera and maybe even a B-roll camera for this YouTube channel. I used to have the X-T30, but then I sold it because I was upgrading. I wanted to buy a new lens and I didn't want to spend more money. And besides, I was thinking that I could make this X-T3 wonderful camera an all-rounder. So it's going to serve me for making videos, photos, but also I can just pick it up and go into the everyday. But no, it doesn't really work that way. And I really love the way I worked with the X-T30. It was the X-T30 that gave me a sense that it's not just so much about having a camera and all the things you could do inside, but also the form factor and how it fits into the way you move around and how you carry yourself. This is something that people take a lot for granted, but it plays an important role when it comes to being endeared towards your equipment. And for someone who wants to photograph every day, and I encourage you, if you're a photographer out there and you want to become really good at photographing and seeing, you're from your own way of seeing, then make it a habit to photograph at least every day. So I went out to get this camera, and today I just want to talk about the camera. I'm not going to delve too deep into it. This is not it's a review that is more on the light side. And what I mean by that is that I'm not going to delve into the technicalities so much. If you are interested in that, there are scores and scores of video out there on YouTube that will give you all of that in relation to this camera. What I want to do today is just to give you a sense of how I've been using it in the last 3 days and attempting to fit it into my workflow. And for that, I'm going to also compare it with my iPhone 12 Pro Max. And this comparison is not so much about telling you which one is better than the other. It is, should I use a photographic term, saying to create a contrast. I want to use one to contrast the other. And given that they have a lot of similarities in terms of how you use it in the everyday, I just feel like I need to put it out there. At the end of the day, if you are thinking of going for one over the other, it will depend solely or mainly on your use case. The X-S10 was released last year by Fujifilm, and it does not have any predecessor in the sense that there is no camera that was coming before it. It is XS. We used to have the XT and all of that, but this is the first, XS10. And I think that the aim here is to sort of like lure in those entry-level photo enthusiasts who want to, and amateurs who want to sort of like take their photographic game or take their photography, you know, up one more notch. And so this is really perfect. But again, Fujifilm wanted to sort of like move away from that classic thing that they have been doing. So like doing a bit of a retro that we see with the X-T30 and the X-T3s and all of that. But again, this camera is super, super powerful. In fact, it is more an X-T4 in a small body, in a small form factor than anything else. Now, when you pick up the camera, the first thing that you feel is this grip here. So if you've ever used any Fujifilm camera, this will be new to you. But again, very welcoming because immediately you feel the grip here. Already, it says portability. It means that you can just carry it everywhere. I myself, I always have this little thing here as a way of strapping. That way, no matter what I do, I know that my camera will never fall off. This is very, very important for me when I'm sort of like going around in the everyday. So it allows me to sort of like let the camera dangle that way, you know, while I can just sort of like pick it up. This is the advantage for me over the X-T30, and it's a welcome advantage, especially this period where I've been photographing in the snow. And by the way, it snowed here some 2 days ago in Berlin. I think it's the first big snow that we ever had. We all woke up in the morning and we saw this really beautiful, lush, you know, white covering of everything, cars and everywhere. So I went out 5 a.m. in the morning and I started photographing with this camera. But at some point I started to feel, my hands started to feel sort of like numb from the cold. And I put on my gloves. And this is really where I appreciated this grip, because I could still grip this even with my gloves. And that is welcoming. Now, when you pick it up, like when I brought it out from the box, the first thing that I noticed that when I shook it, I could feel something wobbling inside of it. But hey, it's the IBS, because it has an in-body image stabilization. And this is actually what sets this camera apart. Like I tell you, for this small form factor with an IBS, it makes all the difference. In fact, it makes this camera a perfect camera for vloggers, for someone who just wants to start his YouTube channel or her YouTube channel, you know, and just want to just go. You don't want to have many equipment. This is really perfect for you. Now, the body is made of, you know, magnesium alloy. What this means is that you're not going to be seeing a lot of chipping up of the paint. And even though it does not have a weather sealing, for those people who know about, you know, professional cameras, usually they have weather sealing. For instance, this lens on this now, which is the 35mm f2, is weather sealed, but the body is not. For me, I don't think that this is a problem. It was the same thing with the X-T30. It wasn't weather sealed, but at the same time, I didn't have any issue with the X-T30 whatsoever. I worked with it every single day for about 1 month, traveling the whole country, but I didn't have any problem. And I think it will be the same for this. The camera so far performs really well. It is very fast in terms of autofocus. So one thing for me that I really, really appreciate about this camera is this, you know, tilt screen. It is much more flexible than in the X-T30 or even in the X-T3 that I am using here. And so far for me, it has come in handy. For instance, I was photographing inside a bus and I didn't want the person to notice that I was photographing, so I tilted it this way. So imagine me tilting this way and then still looking at, you know, the frame or the picture from here. So I'm not even facing the person, see? The lens is facing the person or the subject that I'm trying to photograph while I am seeing it from here. Photographically, yeah, but even with video, it comes in super, super handy. One thing that has been heavily criticized about this camera is the battery life. And I tell you, I have noticed that, and this is one downside to it, that if ever I'm thinking of not keeping this camera on the long term, it is because of that. The battery drains so fast. Now, the thing is this, the camera is so good that you forget that you have to charge it. But then when you now pick it up and realize that, oh, the battery has drained and you didn't come out with an extra battery, all you are left with is, there's a USB port here, you know, that you can charge it with. Now, this is not a mobile phone. So the battery is not going to last you all day or 8 hours or 9 hours or so. It means that at every point in time, you should have it at the back of your mind that you might end up having to use your battery pack to charge the camera here, or come out with enough, batteries. And speaking of which, it has the same battery as the X-T3, but not the X-T4, because the X-T4 has a larger battery. I think it's of the same form factor, but somehow they have done something to it to make it last longer. And I wish that they also put that X-T4 battery into this one, but instead they went for the one in X-T3 and the X-T30. And that is a pity, because this is the only downside. Now, when it comes to video, I have said it before, this is a perfect hybrid camera, and it was designed for that. It was designed to meet, it's like to have this sort of like all-rounder, so that the person who is getting into photography for the first time might feel like, oh, I have it all, and I can sort of like use it to practice. I can use it to train my eyes for photography. I can use it to train my, to sort of like try out my video skills, especially for handheld shots. The IBS, again, we'll come back to that. Now, I'll be traveling next week. I've been traveling from here, Berlin, to Barcelona. And I'm looking forward to that travel. It's going to be a little bit quirky because there's all this whole coronavirus test and forms to fill for. And of course, there's still lockdown here in Berlin heavily. But in Barcelona, it's a bit, not as serious as here in Berlin. So I'm going to be spending some 1.5 months in Barcelona. That's why I'm going to be using this camera more. And I'm hoping to show you images from this camera of Barcelona, because I'm going to be going out every day to discover the city. And one of the things I want to do is to sort of like have this diaristic way of moving around in the city and photographing, the city. So watch out for a more in-depth review of this camera when I get to Barcelona, or even I'm going to show you some clips of my journey, my very, very first travel since February 2020. So let's look at the iPhone 12 Pro Max and how it contrasts with the X-S10, because it is not a comparison. I'm going to be calling this a photographic device going forward, because really the iPhone is a powerful, capable photographic device. In fact, if you have the iPhone 12 Pro Max, I am sure that you went for this big form factor of a mobile phone because of the cameras. And you will be right, because it is very, very powerful. Now, when it comes to portability, well, if you have this in your pocket, then you are covered. Now, when we talk about image stabilization, while the X-S10 has its image stabilization in its body, the iPhone 12 Pro Max has its on the sensor. A lot is happening with all the computational magic that Apple has equipped this phone with. So for instance, it has all the portrait mode to make up for the depth of field. It has a LiDAR sensor to help with focusing. It has a night mode, which is amazing, and all of that. It has fixed lens. However, there are 3 lenses, an ultra wide angle lens, a wide lens, and a telephoto lens. While the X-S10 is an interchangeable lens camera. That is to say, you can change your lens from one to the other. And this is for me one of the biggest advantage with the X-S10, because I own other Fuji lenses. The one I'm filming with right now, which is the 16-55 f2.8. Let me now use the opportunity to say that even the bigger you go in terms of lens, the better the image stabilization for the X-S10. Now, I've talked about the computational photographic capabilities of the iPhone. Whew, that was a mouthful. But while that will help in terms of convenience, and it's like a point and shoot, and then you really get good image quality. But sometimes this could also be a downside, because Apple has made it such that the iPhone takes care of all the processing. So you don't have any creative control whatsoever, And if you are photographing in a very difficult or in a complex lighting condition, the iPhone tends to sort of like flatten the situation and doesn't give you a natural looking image. When you're talking about low light, night mode on the iPhone 12 Pro Max is just amazing. But at the same time, sometimes the images that come out don't look really natural. You're better off with using a camera that has a lens and the sensor is much better and bigger. So by the way, because of the IBS inside the X-S10, now low light has even become better. So again, you are not that far off. I mean, it's going to still be a little bit of a struggle. You have to still push your ISO to say 12,800 for you to get a really good image in low light, but it's much better because of this IBS. This is something that I forgot to say before. If you are looking to photograph for social media and for the everyday, say your family and trips and vacation, I think you're better off with the iPhone 12 Pro Max because it's super convenient. If you're not looking to publish your photographs tomorrow and sell the prints and all of that, I think you're better off with the iPhone 12 Pro Max. Now, I'm not saying that it is not possible for you to make photos that you will sell or publish tomorrow with the iPhone. But I'm just saying that for you to really have more creative control and to be a proper photographer, really you have to think of going beyond something like the iPhone, because really it's all about physics. You can't cheat it. The iPhone is not made for people who have really creative control. I mean, there are photographers who know how to photograph with the iPhone. Now, even the inbuilt camera now offers what Apple calls Apple Pro RAW. So it is like a digital negative of the images you make. So, and it gives you more post-production control over the image that you've made. So I know that professional photographers can work very well with the iPhone. But if you are thinking about staying in that middle ground between being a professional photographer and making professional images, but also making it portable, then you're better off with the Fujifilm X-S10. Another thing again for me, which is for me everything, is that the style, the photographic style. Since I started my photographic practice in 2001, I've had one photographic style that is more important to me than even composition. It is depth of field. And depth of field is defined as the relationship between the sharp and the blurred areas of your image. And you can play with that and you can use that to sort of like give a sense of your creative style. And much of how you control the depth of field in your camera is through the lens, the aperture of the lens. Now, this is not the only way to control it, but it is one of the obvious ways, one of the first ways of doing that. So for instance, for you to have a shallow depth of field, think of shooting with a wider aperture. That is to say, the smallest number in the aperture ring of your lens. Now, the iPhone does not allow you to control the aperture so much because it just takes control and does all the processing for you. On the other hand, something like the X-S10 allows me to sort of like work with my aperture, as you can see. And most of the time, I don't move my aperture from the 2.8. I'm always using the 2.8 to shoot. Now, what I do is that I put it there and I now just play with my depth of field. I know what I want to keep in the background and I know what I want to make sharp in the foreground. And that for me is the one big advantage. The one reason why I want to have the X-S10 all the time, even though I have an iPhone. So you see the reason why I say it's not so much about which one is better than the other. Now, I photograph with the iPhone, but it comes in handy for me for all the photos that I want to immediately, put on social media. It is very powerful. And when I take it to even Lightroom, that is Adobe Lightroom, then I can do magic with that in terms of post-production. And when I put it on social media, on Instagram, the screen is very small. You don't see, any artifacts and things like that, which is, again, something I want to talk about. When you put the images that you've made with the iPhone side by side, the one you've made with X-S10, of course, obviously, the one with the better quality is on the X-S10 because it has a larger sensor. The pixel here is 26.1, I think, if I'm correct, while that of the iPhone 12 Pro Max is 12 megapixel. Now, iPhone has this thing called deep fusion that it does. Again, computational photography, where it makes like about, did they say it's like 14 images and so like stitch them together to give you a sharp image that is very rich in pixel. So it makes it feel like it makes up for the fact that it has only 12 megapixels. But still, when in real life, when you put the images side by side, you feel like this is much better. So in conclusion, if you are tending towards social media content and everyday family vacation and stuff, you are better off with the iPhone. But if you are that person who thinks, I can take my photography, my filming, my vlogging, to another level, then I would say, go for this. If you are in the Fuji ecosystem, this is a beautiful addition. You have a camera that you can call on at every point in time. If you have any of these devices and there is something I've missed to point out, let me know in the comment section. Let's also make it a conversation. And if you like this content and if you find it beneficial or somewhat entertaining, then please consider liking. If you want to follow what I'm doing, I'm hoping to be more consistent, putting out good content out there. If you want to follow and also watch this channel grow and be part of its growth through your contributions, through your comments, through your suggestions, your advice, please consider subscribing, and so that let us grow together as a community. And check out my other videos and see what might interest you. Okay, that's it. See you in the comment section or in the next video.